Okay, so today we're going to be talking about preparing your CV, especially preparing it in mind with the ERAS application in mind. Um, we'll go through a number of things. We'll be talking. Let's see if I can. How do I close this, Nancy? Okay. We'll be basically talking about the focus of your CV. We'll be talking a little bit about format and the content. So this will be a rather simple webinar tonight. It's not going to be probably as long as some of ours. There's not that much, but we'll be giving you a sample CV, and also we'll follow that up. Probably tomorrow we'll send out a copy of the slideshow. And also a better copy of the CV. We've integrated it into the slideshow, and so it is not quite as clear as it could be, but we will send that to you as part of the service. So your focus for your CV, we always tell people that it's really important to keep in mind that you're applying for a training program, but you must keep in mind that you are applying for a job. And so that gives you, that just means that you have to have this you have to keep both strategies in mind and integrate both strategies into how you present yourself. So one of the most important things that you want to do is to show that you're interested in the specialty. If you're applying for an internal medicine program, you don't want to be showing psychiatry, all these experiences around psychiatry. You want to be showing experiences around that have to do with internal medicine or any kind of medicine. Any of the subspecialties are fine. But really, you need to think about your CV as a kind of marketing tool. And so if you are applying for, a particular specialty, that needs to come through in your CV. So just keep that in mind. Your CV should start with your professional preparation. You really shouldn't need to put in experiences from when you were a child or probably even sort of at the secondary level. You'll want to keep it professional. Your CV will discuss your academic preparation, your experiential preparation, and also your personal preparation. And you'll want to format, or not format, but you'll want to describe everything, compose everything. So it really serves to support your application, your solicitation of the job in a particular specialty. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then another thing that we want to have in our CV is that we want to have minimal distractions. And so we're going to talk about format in a minute, but in terms of distractions, that means that you don't want a lot of, as far as content, it means that you don't want to have a lot of superfluous content, just all kinds of different things that you do that you have done. It could be that you are, even though you're, somewhat young, you have, so many accomplishments in so many different areas. You want to just kind of stick to, what is the most important, what is supporting your application. At the same time, you don't want gaps in it, but we'll discuss that later. But you do want to show sort of some kind of focus, and not have it go on and on and on for 25 pages about, all of the things you've done in your life. So another thing that we emphasize is that it's very important that your CV is heavy on content. What does that mean? That means, that you have all the correct information in there. Information again that supports your job application, but that you're somewhat light on formatting. We really like a nice, clean look to your resume, your CV. So we'll talk about that in a minute, what that means when we go to format. So that's just sort of an overview Let me go to the next slide, and then we'll take a look at then after this sort of how um, this sample CV looks. So when we talk about formatting, we're talking about the fonts you use, the bullets, the colors, the photos, faces, all of these things that people put into it, sort of how it looks. And often we think that, well, the most important part is the information. But if you have a lot of things going on in your CV, it can be very hard for the reader to comb through all of the mess to get to really what is the most important, which is the content. So we suggest that you try to reduce as much as possible your usage of bullet points, of numbering. It should be all black color. You don't want a lot of different colors. You want to use essentially one font, one kind of letter. Uh, the European CVs often will have a photograph. In the US, that is not typical. So you will be, for your ERAS application, you'll be uploading your passport photo. You probably have to upload another photo. I'm not exactly sure how they do it. So you don't need to have that on your CV. I would say it's probably not a good idea. Um, we we suggest that you use the tabs. The tab will take you over about 5 spaces instead of using spaces. It will be much cleaner. Um, and so, that if you have a lot of spacing, you tend to get these sort of wiggly lines and, as far as the sort of the vertical lines, and it really doesn't look very nice and it's very distracting. And then we also discourage people from using the MS Word templates. They're just really a nightmare if anybody, we'll talk about editing in a little bit, but if anybody is editing your CV, it can be a nightmare for them because you're so locked into uh, into the format. You can't move things around, and sometimes the CVs can get so long, and there really isn't that much, but it's 10 pages long. So we discourage the use of the MS Word, that you can do a better job just doing it on your own. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So we are going to show you a format that we've modeled on the ERAS application. We think that this can be very useful for you because when you go to upload your application, you will need to fill out this very long form. And it's really nice if you can have all of this already in a Word document, we call it some kind of word processing document, so that when you go to do the application, you can just cut and paste. You already have your working document. You've already run it through the spell check, and you've had it evaluated and reviewed by people that are helping you, and you can, you've worked on the text, and so you can just cut and paste it into the ERAS application. I'll show you what we mean right now. We're going to review a sample CV. This is John Extern. So we'll look at that in just a second. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this very well. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but we're going to try to look at this. I don't know if we can zoom in with this thing. We can maybe try. Let me just see if we can do this. Nancy's going to help me here. Maybe not. I don't think so. No, it doesn't look like we can zoom in. Okay, so we're all going to have to squint a little bit, especially me, to be able to see this. And we will give you a copy of this that the same thing you can work with. So you can see up here at the top. I don't know if anybody can see my cursor. Can you see the cursor? You might not be able to see cursive. Okay. Look here at the top, you have the name at the top, John Extern. You have his address, his phone number, and his email. So it's very clean, um, everything justified to the left. Some people like to justify this part to the center. That'd be okay too. And then the next thing that you see right up off the bat is medical education. So you are, you want to highlight that. So that's right up at the very beginning. And, there other people might, disagree with this, but I think that this is very, very critical, that this is the right up at the beginning. And really, they're just interested in your medical education, unless you have some other higher degrees, unless you have a bachelor's degree in something else as well, or a master's degree, maybe a master's of science in something, or a PhD, then you would put those up there too, but they're not interested really in your high school. So just your medical education, or your higher education. Then I've grouped this to have work experience, and you can see that now we go to the next section. And so the top one, you have the name, and that's bolded, and then medical education is bolded, and then work experience is bolded. And like I said, this is modeled after the ERAS application, so it'll be very similar. And what we've done here, you see right under work experience, you have the dates. Okay, you can, if you like, you could put, August 2012 through whatever that date is. I can't see it very well. Maybe that's June 2012 to August 2012. Or you can put August, whatever, July 2013 to the present. You can put that. You can write it out if you want, but however you do it, if you write the word like the month, January 22nd, January 2012, if you write it out, make it consistent all the way through. Don't have the numbering and then, the actual word, the month word. Just make it consistent. It should all look exactly the same. Because the objective here is, like I said before, we don't want to distract the reader with crazy formatting and inconsistencies and messy mistakes. You want it to be absolutely 100% clear as a bell and not distracting from the content of who you are. So you can see that we've put the date and the title and where it was, and this person has already also put their supervisor. I'm just going to go through this, and then we'll a little bit faster, and then we'll come back to it. On the second page, you see they're still doing their work experience. Then they have some volunteer experience. You can see the dates are all there. Now, here's where they got into a little trouble. So they had some awards and they didn't put the date in. So we asked them, this is a kind of a compilation of a number of different CVs that we looked at last year. But in this particular case, this person did not put some dates. And so when they were under review, we said, we need the dates on these because they are interested in the dates. And so you can see through this formatting that everything is justified to the left, on the far left, and then in the middle where you have all of the the titles and where they did it, and maybe who their supervisor was. That's up to you if you put that in or not. But you can see it all lines up really, really clean. Everything starts exactly at the same place all the way through and even down to the next page. So you are really helping the reader see everything that you have done and not be distracted by formatting and crazy messiness in your CV. Then we have here language and hobbies, interests. So that's sort of the overview on the format. We'll go through the content a little bit right now. But that is kind of that's the format that we are recommending. Now, you can go on the internet and there's lots of, ideas about formats out there. I would stick to the universities and any of the professional organizations to looking for, other formats if you decide to use other formats. They'll have some good formats too that are really nice and clean, but uh, this is the one that we're recommending. So it's up to you what you use, in ultimately, but I would say if you just steer clear of those templates, because those are really not for people that have quite as much to put in as you do. You will need to load in a lot of things. So it will just make it too long. You'll take a 3-page CV and it will be 15 pages, and you don't want that because they're going to stop reading after a couple of pages. Okay, so the content. So basically, we've gone over some of this already. The content that we looked at, the content information, who you are, basically. So you want to make sure that they have everything up there, your name, your address. You do not have to put married, single. You don't have to put anything like that. That's not a question, really, that any job, any employer is supposed to ask. It's actually illegal to ask. You don't need to put in anything about your family. Do you have children? Do you not have children? Do you have a partner? You don't need to put in anything. Just basically who you are, where you live, and how they can contact you. This is very important because there are prejudiced people out there who might be prejudiced. If you say that you have, 6 kids, they're going to be like, well, how are you going to do this job? So you don't want to offer up that information that can distract from who you are as a professional. They are not supposed to ask it, and you shouldn't necessarily offer it, especially in the context of your CV. They should not be interested in whether you're married or not, unless you are, of course, applying to the match as a couple. Then that's a different story. If you're a husband and wife team and both of you are applying to the same match, then that's a different story. But in this case, who you are is just your name, your address, your phone number, and your email, how they can get in touch with you. Some people put their citizenship there. That is up to you. I don't, the only thing they should really be asking about that is if you need the visa sponsorship. So, that's all I have to say about that. That's up to you, but really their interest would only be, do they need to sponsor a visa for you? Because some programs do it and some don't. Okay. So your work experience. Now on the ERAS application, at least last year, work experience was anything that you did, paid or unpaid, that was clinical. So they want to see, anything you were, sorry, I should back up. Anything you did where you were employed and any clinical experience. So that would be, your externships if you're an ING, any kind of, anything that you would consider work. Now this is a little bit intuitive because they also have this section under volunteer experience. So they're really not talking about volunteer clinical experience. So because, for example, if you come to the United States and you do an externship, you're working as a volunteer. You're not being paid. You're not employed. You're doing it for free. And but the ERAS application is going to ask you to put that under your work experience. So I think you should just go right ahead and put that under work experience for your CV as well. And your volunteer experience might be something different. It might be, you want the volunteer experience to not be just, just things that, I don't want to say that didn't matter, but that don't support your CV. You want the volunteer experience that you show to support your CV and support your application. So anything that anything that showed how you can work in a team, how you were a leader, how you took initiative, how you did problem solving, those kind of volunteer experiences are really, really good for your resume, your CV. So I would definitely put those in. Um, you'll also want to put in your awards and accomplishments. Now, accomplishments might be, um, if you won a prize for something you did in school, or if you were given, some kind of award for something significant that you did, like a volunteer award, or, that could be a number of different things. But you can group those all under awards and accomplishments. Your certifications and licensure, you can put any, for example, if you have done the American Heart Association bloodborne pathogens or basic life support, if you have the ECFMG certification already, you can put that there. All of those things would be listed under certifications and licensure. So if we go back to Mr. John Extern, you can see here he's got his ACLS and he's got the expiration date. If you look sort of, 2/3 down the page, he's got a medical record system training that he did, his bloodborne pathogens. He did the HIPAA training. Some of these you can get online, and that's really nice. For example, I always tell people that Harvard has online continuing medical education units that you can get. And you can put those you just pay for. Anybody can take them, but doctors use them to renew their license every couple of years. So you can put that under certifications and licensure. You can do that. Just whatever gives you a certificate, you can list it under there. And then, any memberships. Oh, so research and publications, you'll want to group that if you've done anything in the area of research. If you have any memberships, if there are any medical societies that you belong to, or other organizations that are membership based, you can list those as well. You should definitely list your languages, and it wouldn't be bad to list if you've taken the TOEFL, you can list that under certifications and, excuse me, and licensure. Let me just get some drink. Sorry about that. But you can put under languages, you can state your level too. You can say English, fluency in English, native in Urdu, or whatever your native language is. There are ways to state that. You can look that up on the internet. There's a number of different ways. I think this guy, he says here, Arabic native, functionally native, something like that. English advanced, French basic. That's what he said on this. So you can put that in. And then at the very end, hobbies. And I would say, this should be pretty minimalistic. You don't want to have a page worth of hobbies. But it does kind of give them a sense of you as a well-rounded person, that you're not only interested in school and medicine and a job, that you also have a personal life, and sometimes that helps you connect with somebody on the committee because they might be also interested in things that you're interested in. So so you're basically, there's your groupings, and then, you have the when. You always want to have dates on things. Again, the format for the date should be consistent throughout, so you don't distract the reader. Tell them what it is. What was it? What was your title, and what was it that you did? And then you're going to let's see. One thing that seems to be missing on here, I think it's right here, and it ended up in the white space under here, is where. You'll want to put where you did that. So I'm going to have to fix that because it bled onto the white. Now we can't see it. So basically, when, what, and where. Who you are, when you did it, what you did, where you did it, and then we want to use, for descriptions, we want to use active verbs. So what do I mean by active verbs? So here are some examples of helping, active verbs: assessed, assisted, clarified, coached, counseled, demonstrated. You could put something like taught, instructed. Um, there's all kinds of active verbs. All you have to do is go to Google and put active verbs CV, and you'll come up with 10,000 websites that give you lots of examples of these active verbs. So you want to just really show that you did a lot, and you can do that not just by saying, you know, just stating it, but also by using very active verbs. It gives a sense of what you have done and what you can do. Here are some more verbs. These are more managerial: administered, analyzed, assigned, attained, chaired, contracted. This is giving you a sense that this person is able to multitask, this person is able to lead, this person is able to organize. So, those are all, they all speak to who you are and what you can do. So if you look over here, we'll go back to this guy. You see under his work experience, you see, you can't see it very well, but you see that he's got very detailed information about what he did, um, and um, and how he did it. I would say he could probably have benefited from more active verbs, but he's got like assisted and participated in, observed, attended, rounded. He's got all kinds of verbs in there. Provided. I think we probably could have used a few more since we have this list and it's such a good list. But this is the kind of thing that you want to have when we say heavy on content. This is the kind of content that you want to have. Um, so just consider that when you start putting your resume together, that you're going to be looking for these kinds of active verbs. And then finally, the review. It's really, really important for you to have someone else look at your CV. I would say get as many people as you can to look at it. There's no, dream team for a CV, but I would say, it's very good to have a native English speaker um, read your CV and critique it, because that person will have a sense a little bit more from inside the language. Also, if that native English speaker is a native speaker from the US, that's even better, because we do have different ways of saying things between the different English speaking countries. We have different ways of stating things orally and also on paper. So that's a great thing to have someone really read it very closely. We suggest that you find a few people to do this for you. These are human resources. We don't all have these human resources. Sometimes we're the first person in our family with higher education, and there are not a lot of people around. But if you don't have friends and family that can help you with this, there are always these different services out there. We offer it as well. It's part of our package for our clinical rotations. If you decide to do a clinical rotation with us, either an externship or electives. If not, that's okay too. We have an a la carte service, so we can look at it, and there are other services out there that you can also tap into to see if they will look at your CV. But we suggest that if you're going to use a service, these services cost money, they're very expensive. You really get everything in there before you send it, because you don't want them telling you things, wasting, the time and the drafts that you have paid for. So do as much as possible before you send that on. Make sure you have every single thing in there, because it's easier to cut it out than it is to have you invent it. It's better to say, to have someone just go through and redline it and say, take this out, take this out, take this out, take this out, rather than, can you expand on this a little bit? That is kind of something that you should do. You should do yourself with your volunteer readers that you have. So I think we're coming to the end here. This is a short one today, but I'm very happy to answer any questions you have now. You can type them in, or if you can unmute yourselves. That's fine. I can unmute some of you, but not all of you. No, it won't let me unmute you. I can only unmute Banish. Everybody else is muted for one reason or another. Muted because on the mobile. If you're on a mobile phone, then you're automatically muted. So you can type in your answers or type in your questions here, and I'd be very happy to entertain any questions. Why do we need both a CV and a personal statement for the ERAS application? Well, that calls for a little speculation on my part because I'm not the person who is in charge of ERAS. I'm sure have their own rationale, and I can only guess. But my guess would be this: your CV is an objective list of everything you've done. Your personal statement is who you are as a person coming through. What do you think about yourself? Why do you think you're the best candidate for this position? What do you bring to the table? Now you have to understand these folks, they're going to be working with you for whatever it is, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 years if it's a really long one. They want to know who is this person that is joining our team beyond just the objective list of, what you've done, what you've accomplished. They want to know who you are as a person. And that's why your personal statement is really, really critical to have that done, very professionally so that your voice comes through, and at the same time, again, you're not distracting them with unwieldy sentences and wrongly placed semicolons and capitalization that's not appropriate. So you don't want to distract them with that. You want to have a really nice personal statement. But that would be my guess as to why. Now, I don't know because I don't work for USMLE, I don't work for ECFMG, and I'm not on any of these program committees, but that's the consensus, I think, among the program committees, that that's what they need, the CV and the personal statement. Okay, so hi Lori, good presentation. Just wanted to ask whether it's necessary to include a small paragraph to describe everything we have done, like what we saw in John Ekstern's CV. So I'm not really sure what you're referring to. Is that the paragraph under each one of the entries? Is that what you're talking about? So for example, he was at the Fullerton Kimball, okay, he was at the Fullerton Kimball Medical Center and he described it. Yes, I think for your purposes, it's really important because they want to know what you've done. They are looking at your experience. Now most of you guys are fairly young. You're between 20 and 30 years old, so you're just getting going in your career. So they really want to see that you've done something. And I think that this is a very, very important part of the CV. This gives you a chance to show off all the things that you've done. And that's what your CV is doing. It's telling them what you've done. So I would say absolutely. How many pages is appropriate? Well, some people out in the job world will say, oh, just one page, they stop reading after one page. But in this particular environment, this is where we need to balance out this this idea that you're, you're applying for both a training program and you're applying for a job. So I think that the only thing I can say to that is that I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a limit to the pages. That being said, I would say absolutely do not waste space. And most of the space that you waste is going to be because of the way you formatted it. Don't waste space. Get everything as clean and consolidated and grouped together. This guy had 3 pages. I've seen them, I've seen 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. I've seen up to 5 pages. If you see someone who is in research and maybe has been in research for a long time, they might have, 3 or 4 pages of publications. So, for someone that is at your stage of the game here, I think that you would be fine going up to 3, even if you have relevant experience, up to 4 pages, but that would be kind of a lot, I think. Maybe 4 pages would be probably a little too much, but if the experience is relevant to the position, then absolutely put it in. But if it's not, then you don't want to go too much. So do clinical electives that we do as medical students fall under work experience? So this is a really good question. Um, on the US MLE application, I'm sorry, on the ERAS application, that would fall under work experience. Now you can put clinical experience instead of work experience, and then you can group everything there. Then that it might look a little bit better, even if it's not something that you did outside of school. Then I would say put it there, and then change that experience and group them all there. Even everything you did, like what you did in medical school. Okay, that's what I was thinking too. Thanks. A lot of this is a little bit subjective because it's kind of like a piece of artwork. You're trying to describe reality. So there's, more than one way to skin the cat here. We could do it a couple different ways, but it's just very important that it makes sense. Experience, except externships, observerships, what else is part of this? So you mean what would fall under volunteer experience? Well, for example, this guy, he was a coordinator in, in this compassionate care network that helped organize the BLS training. He also was an assistant at a health fair. So those are a little bit, well, I mean, the clinical assistant for healthcare, it's a little bit clinical, but really it was just one day and it was volunteer work. He was a volunteer medical interpreter. So these are the kinds of things that you would put under volunteer experience. Because the externships and observerships and clinical electives are more like work, you actually, this is actually the work that you're looking to do. I would put that there. I would put other sort of ancillary activities where you contributed something. And then you want to show, what that did for you as far as your, preparation as a leader, as a team member, as a coordinator. You want to make that relevant. So if you don't have anything anything under there that you think is particularly strong, you need to think about, what it is that you did and what it demonstrates, and then see if you can put something there. Because certainly showing that you have, that you go the extra mile, you go above and beyond the minimum of what's expected of you, that you have had some leadership experience. All of those things contribute to to your, you know, demonstrating that you're a good candidate for the job. You're welcome. Thanks. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any more questions, so maybe we're done for tonight. This is just a kind of a short one today. I'll just wait a couple more seconds in case anybody out there is putting a question together. I don't want to cut you off. Okay, so I think we're done now. I don't see any more questions. Like I said, I'm going to send you a copy of this slideshow so you can have it. And then I will also send you a copy of this sample CV because it's not that clear in the slideshow. It might actually be a little better when I turn this into a PDF, but just in case, we'll send you a copy of the slideshow and a PDF of this CD, and then you can have that. And if you think of any other questions or you have any other concerns, you can feel free to email me. If you don't have my direct email, you can just email us through the website, chicagocourtships.com. And so everybody have a wonderful evening, and we hope that we can hear from you soon. Oh dear, okay, thank you for this question. A lot of my ambiguities got solved today. Well, I'm very glad that that was useful for you. So thank you too for participating, and we'll see you soon. Okay, bye-bye.